Hi, welcome to Retiring Well. Folks, we got a great show lined up for you today. You know, week after week, we've got what we call great educational content that we want to give you. Things that we think that would be of interest to you that you'd want to know more about. But it's rare that we get to get behind that and get to really what is the heart of the matter. You know, what are we really trying to address when we're talking about this planning, right? So I want you to stay tuned because that's what we're going to talk about today, folks, the heart of the matter. So stay tuned.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
Hi, welcome back. You know, again, week after week, we try to bring good, education to you. You know, you say, where does the content come from? You know, a lot of it comes from you. We'll be meeting with you. We'll come across a topic, maybe a question that you have, and it, raises a point. We'll start talking about that, and then somehow a light bulb will go off. We'll say, wow, this is something probably we should talk about in the TV show. And so we will do so. I think we have now over 120 segments that, various topics that we talk about. But we very rarely get behind all that, what we call planning, that education, and really delve into what is the heart of the matter here, right? I'm reminded of a movie I seen years ago. My wife loves it. I've probably had to see it a million times because she doesn't mind seeing it a million times. It was a movie called You've Got Mail. It was Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan. And Tom Hanks was coming into this town with a franchise bookstore, huge store, and she had a small store. And of course, they're communicating on AOL, and it had that dial-up, and they're forming this relationship without having met each other. Don't know, she doesn't know he's the one coming into town to, run her out of business. Anyway, they get to the end of the show, and he's basically trying to convince her, listen, it's just business. He says it's not personal, and she says, well, I beg to differ because it's personal to me, folks. Planning is personal. I'm going to talk about this today. What are the things that go behind all this planning and what really is the heart of what's really happening? Let's talk about it because it's very real. It became very real in my life, which I'm going to share with you as well. So, planning. What are these things we're talking about? Well, there's 5 main areas. We're talking about investment management. We talk about what is your risk? Are you conservative, moderate, aggressive? And then, what are the appropriate investment instruments that match that risk, right? If you're conservative, then we want to be talking about what are conservative, instruments. Income planning. What's really behind that? Well, we're trying to plan for not running out of money, right? We're trying to take, what's your Social Security? Do you have pension income? How much do you have in savings? What do you need as an income? And then trying to put that into a plan, to show that person that, they're not going to run out of money, right? Tax planning, that might look a little different in your working years, but now might look different in your retirement years, There's cases where we might be accelerating income because we're working with lower brackets, but there's planning there. Estate planning. Do all my assets know where to go when I die? Right? We talk about things like ladybird deeds, wills, trusts, all various aspects of estate planning that we think would be, valuable for you to know. And then there's insurance, whether that be long-term care insurance, whether it be health insurance, maybe it's life insurance, right, in leaving a legacy or providing for that surviving spouse. Folks, those are, all the main areas that we're talking about week after week after week. But what's behind all that? What really truly is the heart of the matter when we're dealing with all that kind of planning? Well, if we're doing income planning, guess what? We're trying to address that fear. If you've not been somebody that sat down and developed a plan and know what that's going to look like, you have a fear of running out of money, or that it's going to not, outlive you, right? So we want to talk about that. Let's address that fear. Let's make sure that we have a plan that you understand, so so those fears don't come to reality, right? Investments. What's the objective there? Did you live through a 2000 through 2002? When the market lost half its value. How about a 2008? With a credit crash and it lost half its value again. Did you live through that? How did that feel to you? Were you working when it happened? As you get close to retirement or are in retirement, do you want to see that happen again? We got to address that fear, right? I want to talk, I want to go into this a little bit more with, the tax planning and those aspects. So, stay tuned. I want to get to the heart of the matter, so stay tuned.
At Centennial Wealth Advisory, we take a holistic approach to your retirement planning. So it's not just looking at what your investments are, but what is that long-term income plan for the next 30, 40 years of your retirement? What about taxes and what role they play in your retirement plan? Estate planning, what about life insurance, health insurance planning, all key areas to consider when looking at your retirement. So please visit our website or call the number on the screen. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you for a no-cost, no-obligation visit.
Hi, welcome back. Now listen, in the last segment I was trying to get into the heart of the matter, talked about income planning, right? What are we really doing with income planning? We're trying to address that fear of running out of money, right? Let's answer that question, make sure that fear is addressed, that, you feel comfortable with that. The investment objective, again, if you're not somebody that wants to lose half the account or can't lose half the account, are we addressing that? Are we addressing possibly that fear that you might have? And then let's understand that, everybody has a different financial personality. If you were that person that had a paper route when you're younger, saved your money and have always saved your money, guess what? That's probably not going to stop, right? If you're somebody that's been a little bit more, more on the spending side, that's probably not going to stop either. But at least in an income plan, we can address that for all concerned. Taxes, again, when you get into retirement, it's a whole different kind of planning, opportunity. When you're working, we want to put into those tax deferred accounts, right? Because we're trying to, save money, save tax dollars. But when we get to retirement and we have a little room in those lower brackets, maybe accelerating income might be what we're trying to do. I've never run into anybody that minded paying taxes. Well, I take that back. There are people that don't like to pay taxes. But most of us, we understand that's a truism that we're going to have to pay. But we don't want to have to pay any more than we have to, right? So let's have a plan to make sure that doesn't happen. How about with the estate planning? What's really going on behind that? There's some real concerns there. If I'm legacy minded and I want to leave something behind to my kids, then not only is it, vital for me from an income standpoint to make sure I don't run out of money, but I want to make sure that I have something left to go on to my heirs, and then do all those assets know where to go? Can I avoid probate? Can I avoid a big hassle to them? If you've ever been involved in doing any kind of an estate plan, as a personal representative, you realize it's a lot of work, and you don't want to leave a burden to your loved ones or people that are going to handle that for you. So having a good estate plan that can address that from a personal standpoint and take care of those people you really want to take care of, really, really important. And then how about insurance? What's really the heart of that matter? If I'm somebody that was working and I was part of a group plan and now I've got to go out there, if I'm not yet old enough to have Medicare, what do I got? I'm going to be out there on the marketplace, right? Well, what does that insurance look like? I've always been part of a good group plan. Now what do I have, right? There's a fear there. Life insurance, should I or should I not have it? If I'm somebody that doesn't have a lot to leave behind, maybe I have life insurance be there as part of my estate plan, right? How about long-term care? That's really personal for a lot of us because many of us have a loved one that we've maybe had to help. Maybe it was our parents, and we've said, listen, I don't want this to happen to me. So, maybe having long-term care insurance in place addresses that kind of a fear. Hopefully you can understand, when you look at this and you look at all these planning aspects and things that we're dealing with, there truly is a heart to it. You know, there's something that we're really trying to address, you know, and hopefully in our planning, that's what we're getting to. You know, I think of those spousal concerns. You know, if you've got one person that's always handled, you know, the finances and the other person really hasn't, what if that one spouse who's always handled the finances passes away? How is the other one prepared? You know, we would like to think in our education that, you know, we're providing that. But if that spouse is not paying attention or doesn't care to know, how are we addressing that? So I want you to stay tuned because I want to address that. But I want to also start getting into my own story and some of those personal feelings that kind of came in that I didn't see coming. So stay tuned.
Christ Hope is a ministry that works in 7 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. We're focused on AIDS-affected orphan and vulnerable kids. And the first time I went to Africa, I remember holding a little boy named Joma. And Joma was 5 years old. He had AIDS. He had open sores in his mouth. He was skin and bones. He was lethargic. And they didn't know if he was going to make it. And I just remember understanding that Joma's mother was there also. She had AIDS. His dad had already died of AIDS. His sister had died. And this was a beautiful family that had been blown apart because of AIDS. And so Joma, thank God, has been able to get better because of drugs and ARVs. And even though we've come a long way in helping AIDS, it's still a huge issue. But children like Joma are vulnerable to being pushed off into orphanages and neglected and trafficked. And so we come in to help children like Joma be able to stay in families through the support that we do. We have about 1,700 children in our program right now. Interesting little thing, Christ Hope started out doing children's homes. But we quickly realized that the majority of children in the children's homes had families. And we moved in 2010 to a family-based preservation model. And we've seen a dynamic change and transformation in kids who are able to grow up in families versus institutional care.
Dave, I just want to thank you for Christ Hope. It's had a personal impact on my life. You attended our church, I think it was like 9-10 years ago, and you had all these little cards of these kids that we could sponsor. Out of that whole group of kids, I picked one child, and her name is Antonia Anthony Meadows. She was in the 4th grade. She just entered your program. We began writing with each other back and forth, and I understand now she's graduated. She's looking to go on to a university, and now our next step is trying to figure out how I can continue to support her in her endeavors, because I've grown to love this little girl, you know, and so it's been probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life, because, you know, I think of that old analogy, that person that was after the ocean kind of blew all these clams onto the beach, right? Yeah. And the guy's throwing the clams back, and somebody approaches him and says, you know, you're not making much of a difference. And he goes, well, I just made a difference to that one clam, right? That's how I feel with Antonia. I can't help every child in Africa, but I've been able to help one. And now since then, my wife has joined on, and we're now supporting 2 new ones. So it's been very rewarding, and again, just want to thank you for all you do.
Thank you. And so our children now, the first children, Larry sponsors one of the children that was part of that. Antonia, she was able to live with her family, and she's graduating from high school in October. And she'll be exiting the program and going on to university. And she's a great testimony of the impact of this ministry, helping children to be not just healthy physically and academically and spiritually, but emotionally, is that they really grow because they have family. They're not orphans anymore. They have families, and they live in families. Yeah, and I just really want to thank Centennial Wealth. Thank you so much for believing in us and being a partner with us and supporting us in this. This is huge and has a great impact directly to the kids in our program. So thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Listen, if you're just joining us, what we're talking about today is really the heart of the matter. It's trying to get behind all this planning and trying to address, those fears, those personal feelings we have about planning and making sure they're getting addressed. I started to talk about, some of the spousal concerns, trying to get that spouse's fears addressed, who maybe hasn't been involved in the financial planning up to this point, who really needs to, going forward, how are we addressing that? But what I'd like to do is take a brief time and kind of tell you my own story. First of all, I just want to thank you for those of you that have been watching the show week after week after week. At Centennial Wealth, we really appreciate it. I can't tell you how many times we run into people that say, "Hey, saw you on TV. Watch you every week, and thank you so much for the education." And that does our heart well, because that's really what we're trying to do. But I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I had a plan. I had a plan to retire at a certain age. Right now I'm 60 years old. It was going to be about 65, 66 when I got to the Medicare age. I thought my plan was all in place. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy doing this, and so what's the harm in doing this another 5-6 years? I got dealt a heavy blow. I found out that I've got cancer. And it happens to be stage 4 cancer, stage 4 bladder cancer to be specific. It is metastasized through my system, so they didn't catch it in time. So it's a cancer that's not uncommon, but it's incurable. There's no cure for it, but it's treatable. So, with treatment, with chemo, or the radiation, we're hoping to, buy some time. So I'm very grateful for that. But I'll tell you, it stopped me on a dime. I did not see it coming. And I found out real quick that plan I had to maybe work another 5-6 years was not going to work out. With the diagnosis I got, it made great sense for me to retire. Fortunately, in my planning, in my own planning, I had enough of the pieces of the puzzle to put together that I could retire early. I'm grateful for that, because you're going to need that in a plan. We can sit down and we can develop a plan for you. We can set a retirement date. But what if? Right? That plan better be flexible enough to address other issues like what I just had happen with me. My work years have been cut short, and now I have to have a plan that addresses addresses those fears I was telling you about, right? Am I sure I'm not going to run out of money, right? I noticed something else come into play. I'm very grateful to be able to, be called back to maybe even do this TV show. But as soon as I decided to retire and I started kind of relinquishing a lot of the duties that I had, I noticed something else taking place. I realized I didn't realize how much identity I had placed on myself with my work. You strip a person of that, so they don't have that, and it really can be disheartening. I thought I was planning for that, 5-6 years from now, and not working, but to have it thrust on me so quickly made me have to deal with some things I wasn't necessarily prepared for. But I had never dealt with that, and I can really appreciate now dealing with other people who are looking at retirement, losing their identity and what they're going through, right? I always talk, hey, well, you got to pick up some hobbies. You got to do this to replace that. Well, it's easier said than done. There's those hobbies I've always had, but just picking up a brand new hobby and delving into that is hard to do. But those feelings I had and the identity I had with work, and now having that taken away, was a very real thing. This idea of a lost paycheck. How many times I've dealt with people in the planning and didn't really feel what this would be like, but you've got a paycheck coming in every week, and now all of a sudden I'm dealing with cancer. I've got to retire early. My income is going to stop. Even though I have a plan, the heart of that matter and the reality of that matter, that I've got no more income coming in, that I've got to make this work now the rest of my life, is something that you got to deal with, right? It's very real. It's personal. I think of the market, the insurance I was talking about earlier. I've always had, group insurance. I've always been self-employed. I had an accounting practice for over 25 years. The last 9-10 years, I've been doing full financial planning full time. I've always had a group, insurance policy. I'm soon to be looking at when a paycheck stops, I'm soon to be looking at having to go onto the marketplace because I'm not yet to Medicare age. I don't know what that insurance looks like. Is it going to be as good as what I've always had before? Don't know. I got some fears there, I need to address those. I'm looking at life insurance now, that I had in place. How important is that becoming now? So thankful that I had some of it there. Budget. I'm going to talk about this in the next segment, but, just happen to go to my spouse and say, hey, honey, that income plan we had, I maybe not sat down and kind of showed you what that looks like, but we need to talk about that. We also need to talk about what that income is and what that budget might look like. Let's talk about it. Well, there's some fears that come along with that too. So anyway, stay tuned because I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that as well, and some of the conversations we had thereof. So stay tuned.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Hi, welcome back. First of all, I just want to thank you for allowing me to, share my story. Talking about cancer is not easy, but sometimes I need people to stay in the room with me on it. It's my reality. It's something that I'm having to deal with. There's some blessings that come with it. It's one thing to be driving along and get hit by a cherry truck tomorrow, and I have the beauty of being able to say goodbye to people and to get my affairs in order and all that. So I'm very, very grateful for that. I've lived a great life, so I'm happy with that. I'm so thankful that like I said earlier, that I had all the planning in place. That plan was flexible enough to be able to address something that came along that changed everything for me, right? But getting back to the heart of this matter, there was all the things that I was having to deal with, but now I'm dealing with my spouse, right? She's always paid all our bills and always was glad to let her do that. So I thought she had a great grip on, our financial situation. Come to find out, there were some things that I had not really shared with her. I took for granted. I started looking at the income plan and saying, honey, I need to sit down with you and talk about what I think it's going to look like, going forward as soon as I don't have a paycheck coming in anymore. And I want to make sure that you're comfortable with it. But I want to readdress what that income plan is for and the income we had set. And I said, let's pull out the budget and kind of look at, what is it you need to live on, and does that match what I had? Well, think of the feelings you have about that. Nobody wants to, bring out the budget and start, looking at those kind of things, but it became a very real thing. She had some fears herself about me being gone, and, what all this planning was going to mean for her. And, who is she going to trust going forward? She's always had me to be there with a financial background to feel comfortable with, that things were taken care of. What does that look like now that I'm gone? How do I do that with her? So, and who does she trust going forward? Well, obviously I'm trying to tell her she can trust those at Centennial Wealth. These are people I trust with my life. I think they're going to do a good job, but it was just the fact that she had to address that for the first time. She didn't know about the risks. what are the things, she's saying to me, honey, that I need to be wary of when you're gone? Again, you've always been that person that's been there for me, addressing all those issues, but I don't have you there to be there for me on that. So, what does that look like? So my heart goes out to all these couples that I've advised for years. Can't tell you how many husbands come in and go, I'm here, I've always handled this, but my wife needs to be taken care of when I'm gone. So I want to get her involved with you guys so she's getting the education she needs. She's part of the planning process. So if anything happens to me, she's where she needs to be. That didn't become more real to me than having to deal with it on my own level and understanding really what that means. Folks, when it comes to holistic planning, all those things that we're talking about, all those things week after week we're talking about, hopefully you can understand that behind all that, it's personal. We all have fears. We all have dreams. We have goals and objectives we want to meet, and we want that planning to match all that. And so hopefully, if we're doing a good enough job as advisors, we're finding out, first of all, what those fears are of yours. There isn't anybody that comes in and we don't first talk about their story. What's their background? What are the fears they have? What are the areas they want to know more about? Let's talk about that first, then getting to the planning and making sure that whatever that planning is we're doing, whether it be income planning, tax planning, investment management, estate planning, or insurance, that it's addressing those personal items. Again, business is personal, so let's make sure we're handling it appropriately. And then, folks, I'm just going to leave you with this. If you're that person out there that has those fears, you think you got a good plan, but you want to run that plan by somebody, get a second opinion. Don't be afraid to call us, talk to one of the advisors and say, what, I think I got my planning in place, but it would sure be nice if you could kind of look at things and see where, I might be falling short, or something maybe where I haven't thought about, right? So, I encourage you to do that. At Centennial Wealth, business is personal for us. We care. That's why we only want to serve those that are soon to be retired, because they come with a whole different set of needs, things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And so we feel like we have the tools necessary to be able to help you through your planning. So I encourage you that if you're somebody out there that would like to get that second opinion, really know where you're at in your planning, give us a call. We sure appreciate it. And again, remember, let's address the heart of the matter. Thank you.